Okay, so we are recording, and yes, it is the fifth week in the 12 weeks of total immersion. Hopefully, things are going well. I am getting some feedback from other leaders within the organization on some things that you guys are doing. So, for those of you that are getting out of your box and taking a little bit of risk, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I know that it's going to pay off for you. And I think it's just, critical to understand, or it's important to understand that my intention, or who I am for you as real estate agents, I am someone who's committed to helping you develop a solid real estate practice for yourself. Like, really develop your production. It doesn't matter how much production you're doing. I mean, if you're doing 2 deals and you want to go to 5 deals or 20 deals, I know we can help you, but you have to engage, right? If you're doing 50 deals and want to do 100 deals, been there, done that. I can easily help you. You just have to engage. You have to kind of get out of your comfort zone and engage with me, myself, other leaders within the organization. Try some of these strategies and techniques out, because they all work. I wouldn't be sharing any strategies with you at any point if they didn't work. So I know that they work. It's just a matter of whether or not you will work them. So we've had a few good weeks of conversations. I want to kind of shift gears in today's conversation, and I want to kind of talk about the mindset a little bit more, and talk about the mindset of a top producer. It's important to understand real estate, and you'll hear me say this from time to time, real estate is a game of confidence. The more confidence you have, or the more confident you are, the more confident your clients will be in hiring you as their agent. And to put this in perspective, like going back to a surgeon, I use medical field as examples all the time. If you were, awake and the doctor was getting ready to perform surgery, as a matter of fact, I just had some work done on my teeth a few weeks ago. And, so just imagine laying in the dentist, chair, and the dentist comes in and just says, how are you doing? Great. This is what we're going to do. And then all of a sudden you're watching him, start putting instruments in your mouth, and you notice that he's got a very steady hand. And all of a sudden you feel like, gosh, this guy seems to know what he's doing. Versus if you were sitting in that same chair and leaning back, and the dentist came in and says, well, I haven't really, I think I can do a good job on this. And, and then he picks up one of his instruments and maybe it drops, and then he has to go get a clean one. And then all of a sudden, he asks the nurse for something, or the assistant for something. And the assistant says, oh, I didn't prepare for that, but give me 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden he starts reaching, towards your mouth, and you could see that his hand is shaking. Like, both of them may have so much knowledge. They may be very qualified, but what would the difference be in the experience that you're having with the two dentists? See, you would experience something totally different with one, which would be lots of confidence. And then another one, the second one, you would have no confidence. You'd be like, should I leave? Should I get up? Should I tell him to stop? What do I do? It'd be very stressful. Even after you left, you would still be stressed about that situation, because you didn't see that person performing with confidence. Therefore, you lacked confidence in that person. See, real estate is a game of confidence. A confident real estate agent that goes into an appointment, whether it's with a buyer or a seller, a confident agent that has less knowledge will earn more business than the one that lacks confidence but has all the knowledge. See, confidence is critical. Now, here's what I find even more interesting, is that some agents, or I find it interesting how the agent's mindset shifts, or their confidence level varies depending on what source of business they're going after. See, we know it's all about confidence. You got to have confidence. But I also see that there are top producers that are confident in one area, but they totally lack confidence in another area. One agent may feel comfortable working their sphere of influence, They're SOI, but then they're afraid, they're scared to death to talk to a for sale by owner. So it's interesting. Confidence can vary dependent upon the generation strategy, the type of business that they're going after. So I believe, but here's what I believe. I believe that in real estate, that it has nothing to do with the strategy, with the generation strategy or the source of business you're going after. I believe it's the story that the agent is telling themselves about the source of business that determines one's confidence. Now, I'll slow this down for a minute. See, somebody may have a lot of confidence in centers of influence or sphere of influence, but lack confidence in for sale by owners. The story that they're telling themselves about the sphere is likely going to be a more positive story than the story that they're telling themselves about a for sale by owner. So let me give you an example. And vice versa, by the way. Somebody could be excited about working with for sale by owners, but not wanting to work their sphere of influence. You'll see that. I see this amongst agents in every one of our offices and all around the country. You'll see agents that like one thing but don't like another. And it has nothing to do with the actual strategy. It has to do with the story. So let's look at a bad sphere of influence story. This is like a bad story. This is what people are telling themselves who don't want to work with their sphere of influence. Oh, I don't want my friends to feel like I'm asking them for business. I don't want to ask my friends for business. That would be a bad story. Like the person that says, I just don't want to ask my friends for business is the person who's not going to work their sphere of influence or centers of influence, which, that term's interchangeable. That agent won't work that category if they're saying, well, I just don't want to call them. I don't want them to feel like I'm asking for business. I don't want to ask for a favor. That's the story. Now, somebody that is happy to work with their sphere, they're saying things like, I like to call my friends, family members in sphere of influence because I can add so much value. I like to call them because, like, if I don't call them, somebody else is going to call them. And if somebody else calls them, they're not going to have the experience that they're going to have by working with me. So one of them says, I love to call them because I add so much value and it's just great touching base with people. I don't necessarily have to sell them or ask for business. Just staying in touch with them and reminding them that I'm in the business is enough. That's a good story. The bad story is I don't want to ask my friends for business. The narrative that you state or the story that you make up about the category dictates whether or not you're going to work the category. Let's talk about for sale by owner. Here's a bad for sale by owner story you can tell yourself to make yourself feel better about not working them. And that would be this. They don't like agents. I mean, if they liked agents or if they were willing to pay a commission, they would have just hired one. They must not like agents. They must have had a bad experience with an agent. I mean, they'll never pay a commission. They don't want to pay a commission. Like, that's the reason a lot of people don't call for sale by owners. And if that story was true, it's not true. But if it was true, I wouldn't want to call them either. But that's not a true story. That's just the story that people are telling who are avoid calling them. So a good story would be they have no clue on who to call or how to hire an agent. A lot of for sale owners have no idea what the process is to go hire an agent. The stress level to go on the internet and see millions of realtors or thousands of realtors in each local market and try to figure out which one they should call is stressful. And sometimes for sale owners, they're just hoping that they can actually drop the price a little bit and maybe sell it a little bit faster. Like, nowhere in the story of for sale by owners should there be conversation about them not wanting to pay a commission, unless you're just trying to avoid working that category. If they weren't willing to pay a commission, then why is 8 out of 10 of them go on the market anyhow? Or a lot of the for sale owners that are trying to sell on their own right now are past expireds. They used to be on the market, so obviously they were willing to pay a commission. And then you look at how many for sale owners are there right now and how many of them end up on the market. So all those are willing to pay a commission. Most of them at some point were more than willing to pay a commission. So that's not a true story. But that is the story that agents all across America are telling about that category that's keeping them from moving forward and working that source of business. So I'm going to just break down a few categories and not just tell you all the good stories and the bad stories, but I'll share some mindsets that you should have in each one of these categories, that when you have these mindsets, you may be more willing to kind of get out of your box and try something new and approach this new category, because there's just a tremendous amount of business that can be gained from it, as well as there's a tremendous amount of value that the consumers can gain by being in a relationship with you versus some real estate agent that's just chasing commissions and just kind of wanting to do a deal, but not really interested in providing a good service. That's not you. You're wanting to do a deal, but you also want to provide a good service. So you owe it to these people to go and give them an opportunity to be exposed to you. Because if you don't expose yourself to them, they have no chance to even choose somebody of your caliber. I was once in an audience one time, and Mike Ferry was speaking, and this one guy got up and he said something. Now this guy he was a great agent at that time. He was probably 150 deal producer, which was a great bit of production at that time. And he asked the guy, he said, I can't remember his name now, but he asked him, hey, do you make contacts every day? Yes. Do you make all the contacts that you're supposed to make every day based on your goal? No. Okay, so how many contacts are you supposed to make? 40. How many contacts do you make? 10. And then Mike said to him, says, look, the 30 people that you're not calling through the day are highly probable of hiring one of your competition who is not going to take care of them as well as you're going to take care of them. So instead of thinking about not calling them because you don't want to bother them, think about the disservice you're providing the community by allowing those 30 people not to be in touch with you, who you know is the best person for the job of helping them buy or sell real estate. And I just thought that was a neat story. It's like, I owe it to the community. If I'm really going to treat people with respect and be professional and bring knowledge and add value, then I owe it to the community. I owe it to for sale by owners and expireds and every other source to make sure that I give people the opportunity to hire me. So we'll go to for sale by owners again. Just some of the for sale by owners, contrary to what everyone believes, most for sale by owners, by the way, believe they can sell their property faster. A lot of them are trying on their own because they think they can sell the property faster. It's not necessarily a commission issue. Now, with that being said, everyone talks about it's a commission issue. Real estate agents say it's a commission issue. The for sale by owners say, I don't really want to pay a commission. And we believe, it's all about commission. No, it's, I don't want to pay a real estate commission because I think I can drop my price by the same amount of a real estate commission and therefore be more appealing to the real estate market and sell it faster. That's what they're thinking. Majority of people are not for sale owners are not concerned about the commission. They're concerned or they believe that if they don't have to pay the commission, they can sell it faster because they can price their property below market value. That's their theory. But why doesn't it work then? Because that makes a lot of sense. Two reasons why it doesn't work. Number one, because they don't know the fair market value of their property. So what ends up happening, if the property was really worth $200, instead of dropping the price by, let's just say $10,000 or $12,000, say $12,000, and pricing at $188, so they could sell it faster. If their property is really worth $200, guess what they do? They price it at $200. And then the buyer comes along and realizes that they're priced at the same price that the other properties that are listed in the MLS paying a real estate commission are priced at. So therefore, they end up making a lower offer because the buyer says, well, I could just buy any of these properties at that price. If I'm going to buy a for sale owner because they're not paying a commission, then I'm going to take the commission off of my offer price, and they make them a low offer. And then the for sale owner and the buyer working the for sale owner can't ever agree to a term. They can't come to an agreement. because there's only one real estate commission and you got two parties wanting to save it. So if you go into the mindset it's all about commission, you probably really won't want a workforce of owners. But if you can just like hear them talking, I don't really want to pay a commission, and just understand at some point they're going to find themselves in a position it's taking longer than they anticipated. And because they were thinking they could sell it faster, now it's taken longer than they anticipated. Now they're going to be willing to talk to you. The key is, have you already told a story about them and decided to never call them again? Or are you continuing to follow up with them over and over again until they realize they ran out of time and they need to hire you? Expireds. You know, a bad story about expireds that keep a lot of agents from calling them is, you know, oh, they're mad. They're mean. Well, but a good story would be, you know, they're mad, but they're not mad at me. And the only reason sometimes an expired sounds mad is because the other agent never called them. So you're the first person that they talk to, and they're just taking it out on you. But after they get their voice heard, after they're heard and they kind of, you know, get it off their chest and get it off their minds, they realize that we're not the ones that made the promises that we didn't deliver, and now they're easy to work with. But that's what a lot of people won't call expireds, because they're like, well, gosh, these people are mad. You know, they've already been on the market and they failed. Or they'll say things like, well, gosh, they're all overpriced. Expireds are all overpriced. If they were priced right, they would have sold. Like, those are the stories that we say to prevent ourselves from calling expireds. But here's a different way to look at it. You have an opportunity to help somebody that really wants to do something, you know, actually sell a piece of property, and maybe they've been misguided. And surely, based on the strategy that was used, whether it be pricing, marketing, or whatever the condition may be, it didn't work out. That's why it expired. But you have the opportunity to turn that wrong into a right. You have the opportunity to be the hero. See, the sellers are really disappointed. But here's one thing I do know, that just about all expireds will list the property at a better price or better terms. Now, what I mean by terms, even though we don't use that as much, or we don't have as many terms, you know, in our listings as we've done in the past, like owner financing and things like that, people are more open to your suggestions. Like, you could have a listing, and in the last month of a listing, the agent could be telling them, you need to lower the price, you need to lower the price. And then they say, I'm never going to lower the price, I'm never going to lower the price. And then it expires, and they enlist with the next agent tomorrow. And guess what they do? They lower the price. It happens all the time. If you don't believe me, pull up all the expireds, and then in the MLS, cross-reference them on the MLS right now, and look at the ones that are active, and look at the prices. They're always lower. So it's a fantastic source of business if we can just tell a different story about that source of business. Open houses. You know, open houses, I hear this all the time. That's a waste of time. They never work. That's not true. That's the story that we're telling. And that's the story that we'll tell our sellers. We'll tell them, oh, no, they never work. It's just a waste of time. You don't want nosy neighbors in the house. You, as a real estate agent, you want nosy neighbors in that house, because those nosy neighbors are potentially sellers, future listings. And they want nosy neighbors in their house, because nosy neighbors have friends and family members that might want to live in the community. If you look at any community, you'll see that people are referring friends and family members to their community all the time. So every nosy neighbor is an opportunity to feature the house. And then if they do know somebody who's thinking about buying or selling in the area, they might mention your name, or they may mention that property. But that one simple, it's a waste of time, they never work, then you, at that point, you justify why you'll never do these things. And then it's just one more area you're not exposing yourself to get great business. Now, we talked about some open houses a couple weeks ago, and I know some people actually got out of their box and started doing them. And I know they got a lot of leads. I think one of them had 13 or 12 or 13 people come through, and they ended up getting a buyer pre-qualified. And I think they got 1 or 2 listing leads out of it. So I know it works. Again, it's just a matter of what story are you telling? Or how about just sold prospecting? The bad story, oh gosh, I just don't want to, I don't want to be a telemarketer. I don't want to bother people. Well, see, a telemarketer's trying to sell something. I always tell real estate agents, coach real estate agents, we're not in the business of talking people into buying or selling. A telemarketer is in the business of talking people into something. We're not in the business of talking people into anything. What we're in the business to do is identify people who have already decided to do something, buy or sell, and convince them that we're the most qualified agent to help them with that transaction. See, if people are thinking that they're going to be calling just solds or just lists like circle prospecting for the purpose of, selling people on something, then of course they're not going to call, because people don't want to do that. We don't want to be telemarketers. But see, we want to know the owners in the community. We want to notify them that they got a new neighbor coming in. We want to notify them that another transaction just occurred and share some additional information on that community and how the market's doing. See, we can bring value to them. A lot of people that own homes, they have no website besides, I guess, Zillow, but it's not a real value. It's just a guesstimate. They don't have really any place that they can go and find what their real value is of their property. Nowhere. They have to talk to a real estate agent or an appraiser to really determine what a property's worth or what it'll sell for. Everything else is just guesswork, not based on using the data that we have access to. So I believe it's a real value to be communicating with homeowners. If they own stocks, believe me, every once in a while, week, 2 weeks, or a month, I guarantee they look at their statement to see the value of their stocks and bonds and mutual funds. But in real estate, they don't have anything like that. So it's a perfect service that you can provide to a neighborhood, is getting to know all the people in that neighborhood and sharing that value with them. What will happen is over time, you'll just happen to trip over people who are thinking about doing a transaction. Every community practically has properties for sale. Just about every community has a home for sale in it. And every community will probably have a home for sale or more the next month, and the next month after. So if you are actually prospecting now, you may find yourself talking to somebody who's the future seller in a few months from now, providing them good value, and then watch what happens. That's not bothering people, because we're not trying to sell them or talk them into anything. We're letting them, once we identify that they already want to do something, then we're going to help them. Community domination plan. Look, that's just kind of a multi-channel approach to working a community. It's kind of like the prospecting that I just mentioned. This is a way that you can really build a big future. But then again, people say, well, gosh, I don't know if I want to bother them, or, I've already sent them an email. Do you think it's okay to to make a phone call to them and whatnot? Yeah, we just need to change that story. See, you got to remember, the only time you're bothering people is if you're bothering people and you're not giving them any value. That's what a bother is. Like if somebody calls me up and adds value, I have no problem with that call. If somebody calls me up and all they're doing is taking from me, they want me to give them something, they want to take, they're trying to sell me something, then I have a problem with it. So you just got to make sure that you have your mindset. You remember that you're not a taker, you're a giver to the community. And if you'll kind of reprogram your mind with that concept, you'll see that it's much easier to approach these different strategies. Social media. You've got people out there that's, the bad stories are going to be, oh gosh, social media is a joke. That's just people can you believe people are taking pictures of what they ate last night, or, posting about how, they just, did their workout. I don't want to be one of those. I just think that that's dumb. That's just, and maybe it is for them or for you. But social media is not just those stories. Like social media is a way for you to be top of mind. And people that are top of mind typically become the top of production. And so I'm not talking about becoming a top producer just because of social media, because the reality is it's not going to make you a top producer. Can you luck out and get a few deals every year? Absolutely you can. But what social media is, it's basically a way for you to brand yourself to all the other people that you generated through different sources. Like for instance, if you're doing some prospecting, working for some owners, work in your sphere of influence, door knocking, doing any of these methods, FSBOs, expireds, then you're creating a database. You're building a database when you're doing those strategies. Well, so then when you do some social media, you strategically post things that would be interesting for that database. Like if you've got a database of property owners, then maybe you post something about how property values are increasing or how interest rates are increasing, and there could be a threat or a downward pressure on pricing of homes. Like whatever's truthful, you could post that. And because you know that this is your database and they're likely to recognize your name, therefore read that post, and that post has some sort of value, now you're top of mind. That's what really works. What's interesting is that none of these methods are great alone. But when you combine a few of these methods, just one or two, maybe three, just one or two or three, combine a few of these methods all together, now you've got a well-built business that will lead to good production or great production, depending on how far you want to take it. Sphere of influence, we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. If you don't call them, then they may call someone else, or they may get a call from somebody else. And so we've got to just make sure, again, that your SOI is important. It's important to you. And when you reach out to them, make sure that you always have value. Let them know what's going on in the marketplace. That's a good enough reason to call them every 45, 60, or 90 days. You could call your SOI every single 90 days and just give them an update on the market, and they would be happy with that. That would be a great service. You could email them every 30 days and call them every 90 days. You could put a social media post to that database every 30 days, email them every 30 days, and then call them every 90 days. And next thing you know, all of a sudden you're getting more and more business from that one category. That's kind of like the community domination plan. Community domination plan and your sphere of influence plan can be very similar. What we're doing is we're using multiple channels to touch on them, so we become top of mind awareness, and therefore we get a lot of business. We earn a lot of business. And then, of course, door knocking. Door knocking is just another version of kind of like prospecting, right? It's just that you're going into the community versus calling into the community. And that's just something that some people like to use the phone. Some people like face-to-face. Both of them are great strategies. Just remember, you're only bothering people if you're not providing a value. So ultimately, what I'm hoping to accomplish on this call, ultimately, I'm just hoping that you'll change your story about these generation strategies. Just change your story. Like the one generation strategy that you're not working, ask yourself, what story are you telling? And change it. And the difference between the agents that are successful at getting business from any of those strategies are the agents that have positive stories about one of or more of those strategies. So all you have to do is understand they're telling a different story. And when you start telling a different story, you're going to get different results. I hope you find that helpful. Of course, you can text me, email me, call me anytime. I love to hear from my agents. I love to do everything I can to help you build your business, give you tips, walk you through or talk you through some challenges that you might have. One of the biggest mistakes that you'll ever make in your real estate career is not tapping into me as a resource. And I hope you don't feel like that sounds awkward, like I'm trying to pat myself on the back. I do have a lot of confidence that I have a good bit of knowledge about this industry. The key is I'm a resource for you, but you have to be resourceful. So please reach out and give us both a chance to help grow your business. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.